Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to York in England, and from what I gather this is a really quite new brewery, so looking forward to trying this one for you today. So we're going to go to Brew York and we're having a taste of their Kiwi ale today. So this one is a New Zealand hopped brown ale, and this is the first of that kind of style, if you like, that I can think of. I've had brown ales from America, of course it's a style I really quite enjoy, but I've never had one that has been done with New Zealand hops. But I love New Zealand red ales and pale ales and stuff like this, so it's going to be really cool to see how these New Zealand hops can turn out in a brown ale. So I hope you guys enjoy this review, and as I say, it's always cool to review beers from new places, so I hope you guys enjoy this one. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. The brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Brew York. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, of course. All the usual social medias there. If you want to see more beer reviews, do subscribe to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed before, and that's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. Always interesting to hear from you guys, and your support of the channel is always hugely appreciated. And do in particular let me know about some other English beers that I should be checking out, because in Scotland, of course, it can be quite hard to come across some of the English craft stuff, so it would be interesting to hear from you guys. But anyway, to tell you a little bit about Brew York then. So Brew York was founded in 2015 by Lee Grabham and Wayne Smith, and it's actually only one of two breweries within the bar walls of York, basically the kind of old walled off part of the town. But the guys were home brewers and apparently inspired by the likes of Northern Monk, Tap Leeds and Little Creatures in Western Australia, who all had this kind of small brewery setup with a sort of a kind of bar and pub thing within the actual brewery itself, and that's what they wanted to emulate. But Lee had previously worked for Aviva, while Wayne had worked in construction for the Shepherd Group, and the brewery really is based in the Enterprise complex. It's actually a really nice old building if you go and look at the photos on the website, but it's actually a former storage area for the York Archaeological Trust. So the upstairs in the building is where they actually start the brewing process. This is staff only, so you can't see that, but the mezzanine actually houses the brewing equipment and has a bar around it, and they also have an outdoor area that overlooks the river and the wharf, and they do plan to add a shop into it later on. And like I say, go and check out the pictures on the website. It does look really quite nice, and they always seem to be churning out new beers, even though they've only been in existence for maybe like a year and a half or something like that. They do seem to have quite a list of things that they've brewed, and actually the batch number on this beer itself is 4724, so in a year and a half to have brewed like 4,724 batches, if that indeed is their batch number system, that is pretty impressive. But I think they had about 30 or 40 different beers that they brewed listed on Rate Beer, so do make sure you try some of their beers if you find yourself in York. And York itself is a really quite pretty town, so if you find yourself in the north of England, definitely go and check out. Very, very historical place, of course. But anyway, that's enough about the brewery in York just now. We'll get on to the tasting of this beer itself. So this one is a 5% brown ale. It's actually part of their Untappd series, all of which seem to be named after animals. It's got 3 New Zealand hop varieties in it and 6 malts. It didn't say which country the malts were from. Not sure if it will be New Zealand malts. It might well be, of course, but it should be really nice. And as I say, this is the very first time I'm trying a New Zealand brown ale. So it says this one, the first in Brew York's Untappd beer series, Kiwi's harmonious hop to malt balance allows the character of its 3 New Zealand hops and 6 malts to shine through, resulting in a delightful malty beer with a rich hop flavour and satisfying aroma. So that does indeed kind of suggest that the malts in this one are of course New Zealand ones, so that'd be quite interesting too. I'm not sure how many New Zealand malts and things I've tried, but of course it's the hops that are really noticeable when it comes to most beers. Of course, New Zealand hops really have quite a distinctive flavour, of course. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. There you can see it's actually a really cool style of artwork on this one. I do like that actually. If it wasn't one of these kind of paper labels, I would steam it off and actually keep that, but unfortunately that will get destroyed if I do the kind of old steam off technique. But just a plain bottle cap on this one. As I said, 5% brown ale, 3 New Zealand hops and 6 New Zealand malts by the sound of it. So yeah, let's get this guy open then and we'll get on with the tasting. So yeah, nice smoky opening there, and we'll get this guy out and into the glass, and you can smell some of that nice fruity character from this beer as well. The New Zealand hops, as I say, they always have a really distinctive, really quite juicy fruity aroma. And if you've tried things that have like Nelson Sauvin, Riwaka and all of these sorts of hops in it, you will know what I mean. You get some really, really beautiful kind of hop varieties from down there. There's a website if you check out New Zealand hop products, or just type in New Zealand hop varieties in Google, and you will get a couple of websites there that list all the different types you can get. So as you can see, this beer is actually poured a really nice kind of red mahogany colour. This one, it's actually more like a does look more like a red ale, to be honest, than most of the brown ales I've come across. But I suppose at the same time you do get some of these brown ales that are quite red, but really nice looking beer. As you can see, a few big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head there, and it is a half finger or so of, I think, probably fair to describe it as a kind of beigey cream head on this one, but it looks very, very nice, kind of roughly what you'd expect from a brownie, a little bit redder I think, but a really quite nice looking beer, and you can smell some of those nice New Zealand fruits from the hops on this one. So let's have a closer look at the aroma then. Now, that does smell pretty good. I reviewed a beer actually from Top Out Brewery in Edinburgh recently, and it was a red New Zealand pale ale. The name of it's just gone right out of my head just now, just as I tried to think of it, but it was absolutely beautiful. So if you get the chance to try some of those Top Out beers from Edinburgh, they love to use New Zealand hops. Stuart Brewing in Edinburgh are another one that love to use New Zealand hops as well. And of course, if you can get a hold of the kind of genuine, the real deal New Zealand beers, then I do recommend they're producing some pretty damn awesome stuff. But this smells really nice. So you've got some, I think there's some nice kind of orangey notes in there. You can smell these lighter, kind of juicier tropical fruits too, maybe like mangoes and papaya or something. Really does smell quite nice. I'm not getting much in the way of grapefruit, maybe more of a kind of passion fruit, but it's definitely these kind of juicier tropical fruits rather than the kind of slightly darker grapefruit note that you're getting from this one. There's a bit of nice kind of chocolatey malt under there, maybe some toasted brown sugars, but it does smell kind of dark, this one. There's some roasted malt in there as well, I think. But nice kind of toasted brown sugar character. It does have quite a bit of sweetness. Toasted brown sugars, chocolate like I was saying, and I think there's a little bit of a kind of roasted malt in there too, but the focus of the nose really is the fruits. But as I say, when you sugar the beer up, you get some of those nice malty characters out of it. So it's quite a complex beer. Just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma from this one before you give it a try. But let's get stuck into this beer then. So this one is the Kiwi Ale, a New Zealand hopped brown ale from Brew York down in York in England. Slàinte. That's quite interesting. Now for me, this brown ale really does kind of lean more towards the malty side of things actually. There's a lot more, just on the basis of the aroma, there's a lot more malty character to this one than you might think, and the malt is actually really quite roasted in this beer. So as I always say, particularly with dark styles of beer, sugar the beer around your palate a little bit and let the whole mouth adjust to this one before you start analysing the flavour too much. But I definitely think this one is a bit more malty leaning than hop leaning. And of course the brown ale is a style that you expect that from, but you can get some of the American brown ales, of course, that are very hoppy by brown ale standards. But yeah, the malt base in this one, there's a slightly bready character to this one, but mainly it's a sort of toasted, roasted malt character that's coming out in this one. It's got a very big kind of roasted, grainy presence. There's a little bit of chocolate there in the middle of the palate, I think. The sort of toasted brown sugars, the kind of sweetness that you'd expect from that. I'm not getting too much of that in this beer actually. But it really is quite nice. As your mouth adjusts to the beer, of course, you start to get more of the hoppy characters out of this one. In the back corners of the palate I'm getting a little bit of earthiness, but as you come further forward you can feel a little bit of a resinous character in there. It's maybe more of a spicy kind of floral flavour, to be honest with you, and that actually mixes very well with the sort of roasted malts in that. I do like it with a brown ale, how a lot of the times you can get these nice kind of roasted kind of grainy notes, and they just mix in well with the sort of piney resins and floral characters that you're getting out of the beer. It's nicely done, this one, I have to give them that. And yeah, it's definitely one, I can feel the beer warming up a little bit, and it starts to mellow out actually as your palate adjusts to this one. Maybe of course it could be with the temperature of course as well, like I'm saying. But it definitely, it gets the roasted character. Once your palate fully gets used to that, you do get a little bit more sweetness out of it, and more of the hoppy character starts to come out of the beer as well. But around the front curve of the palate, I think it's a kind of lighter, sort of grassy flavour that's in there. But as I say, the earthiness is just kind of underpinning the beer, and you've got some floral aromaticity and a bit of pine resin in there as well. But this is quite nice actually. I'd be keen to try this one on tap actually. Would be quite a good beer in that regard. But the fruity side of the beer is quite interesting. There's not too much in the way of a fruity character from this one. As I'm saying, there's a little bit of a kind of citrusy note underpinning it. You do get a little bit more of these lighter kind of tropical notes as you go further into the aftertaste, but really for me, as you'd expect from the brown ale of course, in most cases, it's definitely more of a kind of malty leaning beer, but it's nice, and it's interesting to see how these New Zealand hops come out. And certainly with the fruity characters you're getting from the beer, especially the way those fruity notes are coming out, you can tell it's New Zealand hops in there rather than the West Coast hops. The West Coast hops I always find they taste a little bit more oily, and the fruits are a bit more pungent I think than the New Zealand ones. The New Zealand hops for me, I always kind of think that they come out just that little bit juicier, and they do have a little bit of a lighter tropical note rather than the big kind of strong grapefruit, passion fruit sort of thing that you'll get from the likes of Simcoe and Chinook and Cascade and all these things. That's lovely. So yeah, with the fruity side of the beer, I think, you know, I think it starts off and there's a bit of an orangey character in this one. Just pay attention to that little oily bubble that comes out behind the front curve of your tongue. I think there's a little bit of an oily character in there. Then as it moves on, you get a little bit more of a, I think it's kind of maybe a sort of papaya thing. As I always say, papaya, I always envision papaya, and when I've tried it, I always find that it has this kind of almost bamboo-y sort of character to the fruit flavour. It's got that kind of almost reedy flavour to it, and I'm getting a little bit of that from this one. Maybe a little bit of mango or something, and I think there's a little bit of a kind of slightly candied red fruity ester coming out of this one on the back end as well. It always reminds me of the little heart-shaped Haribo sweets, this one. The fruity character in this though is actually quite hard to examine just because the malts are so prominent. But yeah, definitely a kind of citrusy character just underpinning the beer, and you start to get these lighter kind of tropical notes from the beer as it progresses, and there's a little bit of red fruity ester for me on the end. I think that's a good way to kind of summarise how the fruity character goes. But it's a nice beer this. I wouldn't hesitate to drink this again if given the chance. I'd love to actually try it as a cask ale and just see if the slightly thicker mouthfeel you get, I'd love to see how that would affect this beer. So it'd be interesting to try it with a slightly different conditioning, I think, because you might get a little bit more sweetness out of the malt base, and maybe the fruits would just come out and just be that little bit more obvious without the bit of the carbonation. But I mean, that's kind of nitpicking, you know, it is a good beer. But it's always interesting to try beers with different conditioning and see how they turn out. But if you get the chance to try this and you're curious about a New Zealand brown ale, definitely give it a go. It works out quite nicely, this one, but it does, in terms of the brown ale style, it does lean more towards the malty side of things, so just be aware of that if you try this one. In terms of the mouthfeel of this beer, I'd say it's mid-bodied. The carbonation does have a little bit of a prickle, but overall it smooths out throughout the beer. It's quite an oily feel that this beer has. The hops in this one, they are overall quite smooth, but there is a little bit of earthy and slightly floral, kind of piney resinous bitterness from this beer, and that goes out into the aftertaste. The malt base, like I said, is quite roasted, and it does have a bit of bitterness to it as well. But there is some sweetness in there too, but the bitterness, I think, definitely dominates that part of the beer, and there's a little bit of juicy fruit character that is actually quite complex. It is kind of difficult to examine in this beer, but I mean, it turns out quite nicely, and that's the main point of kind of reviewing this beer. It is a nice beer, and it's definitely for fans of brown ales, people especially who kind of love the sort of more roasted and kind of more malty dark side of a brown ale. This one will certainly hit the spot for you. But yeah, really quite a nice beer, this one. I would drink it again. As I say, I'd love to try this as a cask beer, just with that kind of slightly thicker mouthfeel that you get from that type of conditioning. But overall, it is a nice beer. So if you get the chance to try the Kiwi from Brew York, do it. I actually bought this beer in Trembling Madness in York, so that's probably a good place to find it. I'm not sure how widely available these beers are, because it does seem to be a fairly small setup at the moment, but if you get the chance to try some of the Brew York beers, give them a go and see what you think. But yeah, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. As I said, it's always cool to try new beers from new places. Brew York are a very new brewery, of course. If you have tried this beer for yourself, do let me know your own thoughts on it in the comments section below. And until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Do check out my social media. Thank you once again for watching, and I will catch you very soon. The Kiwi Ale, a New Zealand hop brown ale from Brew York down in York in England. I think this brewery should be able to do some really quite nice stuff in the future based on this beer. So until the next time, Slanger just now, and I'll catch you very soon. Hopefully we can return to Brew York in the fairly near future. Cheers.